Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all having a wonderful Thanksgiving. Now, before we begin today's video, I just wanted to quickly thank everyone out there for all of the support on this channel as well as the website at letsbuildthatapp.com. Definitely means a lot to me, and all of that support goes a long way in terms of making this channel what it is right now. And it also allows me to just bring you guys more and more projects for the rest of 2017 as well as the new year of 2018. So again, thank you for all of the support. Okay, so to show my appreciation to everyone out there, I wanted to dedicate today's video to another user request on this channel. And let me show you what feature we're going to be working on for today's lesson. And we're going to head back into our contacts application and notice how we have a bunch of stars on the right side of our cells right now. And these stars allow me to favorite any of the contacts that I have inside of my list. And when I kind of browse away, click on these cells, I can scroll back up and you'll notice that the state of these cells are remained inside of my application. All right, so this feature over here is actually really interesting to build out in my personal opinion. So let me go ahead and show you exactly what the implementation looks like right now. All right, so let's go ahead and go back into Xcode right now and let me run the application that we have so far. This way I can kind of show you what we are rendering out right now. And inside of our application, we have a couple of sections that allow us to kind of close and open up all of these sections for our contacts. And all of that functionality was built out in the last lesson, which was episode 3 inside of this series. So make sure to watch that video and get caught up before you start today's lesson. Okay, so what we want to work on today is the ability to add one of these stars inside of our rows. And so the easiest way to get the star inside of a cell is to actually register a custom cell inside of our view controller class. And the way I'm going to do that is to head inside of view.load, and we're going to replace this method on line 59 and use a custom cell instead of a default UI table view cell. So the way I will do that is to go inside of here, create a new file. Let's select the Swift file and call this perhaps contact cell, hit enter, and we're going to go inside of this new file. And the first thing you want to do is to import UI kit and create this class, call it contact cell. And over here, we will just subclass a UI table view cell. And once you're inside of here, you can start doing anything you want really. And I'm going to override the initialize with the style and reuse identifier kind of initializer here. And you just have to make sure you call super init with that same style and also the reuse identifier. Now, every time you do something like this, you have to wait for this guy to come out, hit the fix, and make sure you override the required initializer. If you don't do that, your code just will not compile. Okay, so once you have this, what you want to do is, just check to see if you can actually get it to show up in your table view. So I'm going to do that by setting the background color equal .red, and over here I can just build, copy the contact cell, go back to the view controller, and over here let's just replace UI table view cell with that contact cell instead. So running this code now, all of our cells should show up as red, and that is all of the kind of information we need in order to kind of determine that our cell is being rendered out. So we are rendering this red color for the background. Let me comment that out. And if you run it again, you'll get the white cell instead of the red. So now what we want to really do is to render out that star icon all the way on the right. And the way I'm going to do this is to kind of cheat and use a hack. And this hack is kind of going to make this lesson easier to follow. So let me just use something called an accessory view, and you have to set it equal to some kind of view. So what exactly is this accessory view going to look like? Well, inside of each one of your UI table view cells, all the way on the right, you have this invisible area that holds an accessory view. And I'm going to show you what it looks like by saying let perhaps star button equals UI button. And over here, we'll just say type.system. And let's see, star button dot set title, set it equal to some title here and give it a control state of normal. And finally, down below, you can say all that equals a star button. So you actually have to set the frame on this star button, otherwise you won't be able to see it. So let's just give it CG rect of some kind of XY width height, and this will be 0, 0, 50, 50. And then we can pretty much run our code and we'll get something all the way on the right side of our cell. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. Well, you see some title all the way on the right side. And the reason why you see the truncation or the 3 dots ellipses is because the width of 50 isn't wide enough to render out the entire title. So instead of using the title, let's kind of do this for real here and say star button dot set image equals some kind of image. Now I'm going to pull in the image from my directory over here, and let's see, assets, open that up, drag this guy in called fave star. You can download this image by going to the link down below, downloading the project, click here, show in Finder, and you can get the icon right there. So make sure to do that or use whatever image you would like. Okay, so now that we have that favorite star image inside of our project, we can say fave star and it just shows up like so. And inside of here, just use .normal for the control state, remove that title, remove these extra lines, and now I think if I run my code, we'll see that star show up on the right side of that cell. And hopefully this is pretty straightforward. I think you guys should be pretty familiar with how these stars work, right? Okay, so that's kind of what that looks like, and by default you get this blue color. You can change the color if you really wanted to by saying this right here, star button dot tint color. Let's get it to be .red maybe, and I'll just put it here to show you guys what that tint color will do, and that's going to allow me to change it later on when I actually tap on it. So clicking on that gives me that little down effect on that button. Alright, so now that we have our button inside of our cell, what exactly do we want to do every time we tap on that star? Well, first let's go up here and add, let's see, star button, add target, and this is going to allow me to execute some custom code every time I press on that star. So this target will be self, selector will be pound selector, say handle favorite, I suppose, or handle mark as favorite. Okay, for the control event, this is going to be touch up inside, and this is the function that you have to declare somewhere inside of your class. So let's mark this as Objective-C function handle as favorite. So good stuff there. You can make this function private if you really wanted to do so. Now I'm going to say the marking as favorite and run my code again, put a quote, and I should be good to go here. So running this will allow me to print out this statement down in the console below. And again, print statements are really helpful to help you confirm that your code is actually working. So down there, we get all these statements. Okay, so really good. And the question now is, how exactly do we link this button over here to the actual entire table view controller so that we can actually tell if we're clicking on Bill versus Amy or Carl and Chris inside of these sections inside of our list? So the way that you would do that is to somehow create a link inside of your cell all the way to your view controller class over here, this view controller thing. And let me just type somewhere up here. So see function, some method I want to call, and let's say print inside of view controller now. So the idea is I want to be able to somehow call this method from this contact cell somewhere. And the way that you would do this is to create some kind of link inside of your cell classes. So this is my link, and I'll set it to be of type view controller, which is this class over there, my entire list over here. So you can create this as an optional like that, or a, let's see, a forced unwrap optional, but I guess I'll just use that for now. And so once you have that, you can somehow over here say link, build your project, and say some method I want to call. And you want to be able to do this. However, you also have to be able to make sure link is something inside of your cell. So I'm going to run this and just show you what the debugger says link is. So click on the star, you see the link is self, link is actually nil, so this does nothing. And the way you get this to work is to go back into View Controller and go into your self or roat method, which is the last method down here, and somewhere over here you have to say, let's see, cast this cell into a contact cell first, and then cell.link equals self, like that. And now all of your cells have that link set up so that you can call whatever you want inside of your View Controller. So you click on this, you see that we hit this method over here, link is actually something, which is your View Controller. Hit the continue, you get all of these messages being printed out because you're inside of your View Controller. If you command click into here, it brings you into this method like so. Okay, so that's the first step in getting all of this to work. And the recommended way of doing this is actually called custom delegation. So you should use custom delegation properly instead. And I'm only showing you this because it's much easier to follow. This is just a fancy word of doing what we're doing here. And so I'm going to show you a couple of links here. So this is custom delegation. So you can use this link, which is over here. So let me just say, paste that in there for more information on how to do this, as well as this link over here. So let me just copy those two, move that out of the way. And feel free to check out those lessons if you really want to learn how all this stuff works. And let's kind of move on to how we figure out if we click on this cell, if we're clicking on Bill or Zach. All right, so now that we're able to communicate from our cell all the way to our View Controller, what exactly do we want to do inside of this method? Well, I want to show you how to figure out exactly which row you are clicking on by using some kind of trick on UI table view. So this trick is to call table view, and you can say index path for some kind of cell. So let's see, we're going to figure out which name we're clicking on. All right, so this call requires us to pass in some kind of cell, and we actually know which cell it is because if we're clicking here, we're the 3rd cell, and this is the 7th cell inside of our section on the top. So the way we're going to do this is to modify this method, some method I want to call, and this is going to actually contain a parameter inside of this function, and I'll call this cell and UI table view cell like that. So if you try to build your project, it's not going to work. And let me comment that out, build again, and you have this error inside of your contact cell class. So whenever you are calling this method, you actually have to say some method to call and pass in a cell. So this cell, some of you probably already know, it's this entire cell class. So to actually tell it to pass in itself, you just say self. Hopefully that makes sense. And now you can go back to the View Controller, go inside of this method, and remove that comment for this cell. Just use the cell from the parameter call, and there you go. So let's say let index path, let's see, clicked on equals that. I guess we're not really clicking on anything on an iOS device, so tapped, and we'll print out what index path tapped is right after we tap on it. So this is just a silly warning. We can remove it if we wanted to. And let's just click on this guy right here. You see we have 0, 0. And if you click on this, you have 0, 6. I don't think this is all that helpful, so let me comment that out. And let's see, contact cell, comment that as well. So basically what we have right here is the setup of how we're going to try to figure out which name we are clicking on. So 0, 6, 1, 0, 1, 3, 2, 0, and 3, 1 down below. So good stuff there. And hopefully you guys can see what I'm trying to do so far. And basically index path tabbed will allow me to say two-dimensional array, and we can use the index path tab dot section. And let's see, so that's going to be, see, section 0 is going to give me this section here, and then I can say dot names and then index path tab dot row. Hopefully that should work. Build my project, comment that out, and you see how the section over here doesn't really work. Well, this right here needs to be unwrapped with a bang, and I believe this over here needs a bang as well. And so that's going to give me my name. So let name equals all of that and print out the name. So that's kind of how this works. You know, we click on a star, we'll figure out which index path it is, go inside my two-dimensional array, and based on those two properties of section and row, I know exactly what the name is. So you see Amy down below, you see Carl, you see Bill, or Zach and Bill, and you get Steve. Down here you get Patrick and Patty. All right, so now that we know exactly which of these names we are clicking on inside of our table view, I want to move on to how we're going to keep track of whether or not we have favorited one of the contacts inside of our list. So this might be a little tricky, so let me comment out these lines inside of my two-dimensional array so that I can keep just two names inside of my list. And I'm going to rerun my application now. We are going to only have Patrick and Patty. And let me make this even easier by removing Patty as well and run my code one more time. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to introduce a modification to our data structure of expandable names so that for each one of the contacts, I'll have some way of remembering whether or not I've favorited these contact names. So I'm going to do that by going back into expandable names. So command click into here. And instead of just having strings for all of my names, I will introduce another struct, and let's just call this contact. And this will have some kind of name as a string. And in addition to the name, we will say has favorited and let it be of type Boolean like that. And with this contact class, I want to replace the names array with an array of contacts instead. So you can try to build this, and with this modification, our code has to be corrected in a lot of different places. So this first little names array that we have to fix inside of two-dimensional arrays has to look like this now instead. So instead of just a string, we have to use a constructor of contact, so contact, and this comes with those two properties. So let me get the correct contact constructor down here. And for the has favorited, let me just default that to a false, cut this and put it inside of the array. So I'll put it in there. And the first name, we'll just have Patrick, so Patrick, and try to run our code. And what happens is there is another error down at the very bottom. So this name is going to be name.name. That kind of doesn't make any sense, but this two-dimensional array, what we're getting out of it is actually a contact instead. So let me just rename that, paste that in there, put that in there. I think we need contact.name. And I can run my code now to show you exactly what we can get. And it should be a lot easier to read. And here we go. We get Patrick, and then we get the star. So the reason why I'm doing that is because if we go back up to the very top where we have the sum method call, I can now also save if I've favorited Patrick every time I'm clicking on this little star guy. So click on that. I have the has favorited, and I also have the contact name of Patrick. So what I'm going to do is inside of here, this is actually contact. So you can say Command Control E, rename this to be a contact. And that's how we do that. And down here, we can simply say let has favorited equals, let's see, equals contact dot has favorited, and then we can say, see two-dimensional array. I'm just going to copy all this, paste that in there, and say dot has favorited equals the reverse of has favorited. So basically it starts off as false, and then I'm going to just swap out the Boolean value. So let me try to run this, and this doesn't exactly work because of this error right here. It says that names is a light constant, you need to change it to a var. So I'm going to do that by going back into expandable names, and this needs to be a var. And the way that structs works is that if you make it be of let, you have to just change it to a var. It's a little bit too much to explain right now. So let me just click on this, and we get has favorited is to false, and then true, false, and true. Okay, so really good stuff there. And now that we have this Boolean being toggled from yes to no, we can go back to view controller and go back to the self or row at. And here is the magic in terms of, trying to get the star to be gray or another color based on this Boolean over here. So the way I'm going to do this is to somewhere in here say, let's see, cell.accessory view, and we'll say .tint color, and this accessory view is that star, and so tint color equals something. So what is this something? Well, contact.has favorited. If it has been favorited, we will say, let's see if this is true, we'll use UI color.red. Otherwise we'll say .light gray like that, and I believe I can run my code now. And so because every contact starts off as has favorited equals to false, you'll see that this star right here appears to be gray. So if I click on it, this really needs to turn into red. And there's a couple of ways of doing this, and I'll show you one easy way is to go back to that sum method at the very top over there. And you can simply say table view.reload the row, and this will be the index path tapped, say tapped, and this we will simply say fade or automatic, depending on what animation you want. It should give you the desired effect, and I just had to force unwrap it over here. Let me remove these comments. Click on that, we get the red. Click on it, we get the gray. So to make your code a little bit more robust so that you don't have these bangs everywhere, you can say guard let else return, and then you can just remove this, remove that, and remove that, this as well, so that you can prevent the crashing inside of your application. So running this one more time, you'll get the star being toggled on and off, and then I'll put the names back inside of our list there. So click that, click there, click that, click there, and we get the toggling of the star. So to make these names kind of come back for us, let me uncomment that. You can, make this change for each one of these string names, or you can do a little bit of trickery with Swift 4, and I'm just going to execute a map on this. So let's see, hopefully you guys can somewhat follow. So I'm just going to say contact name 0, and let's see, has favorited, and let's just set that to false, and I think that should be all I need. And basically the map executes a for loop, you can think of it that way, and for each one of the elements it'll generate whatever is inside these two braces, and then it'll turn all of those, that entire loop into an array, and that's kind of what you get. Pretty much shorthand for doing this down here. So now that we have Amy, Bill, Zach, Steve, we can click on that, and that. And to make this list a little bit more believable in terms of scrolling up and maintaining the state, let's bring back a couple of more sections, and let's use the map technique as well. So let me copy this over here to the dot, paste, and then paste. I think that's what I need. And then I'll get 2 additional sections inside of our list there. So we get Amy, we get Patrick, we get Christina. So you see that reload is a little jumpy. So if you would like to kind of remove that effect, let's see what I can do here. So instead of calling the reload and having that jumpiness, it kind of jumps like that, I don't exactly need to call reload. I can simply say accessory view equals, not equals, but tint color. I'll just set that to be has favorited. So let's see, I think this is going to be light gray. Otherwise we can say dot red. I think that's what we need. Maybe this needs to be UI color. And let's see, what do I need there? A T, and we should be good to go. I don't think you need the UI color because tint color is a UI color. So make sure to remove what you can, and we should be okay here. So Bill and Zach, red, click on this. The list doesn't jump up and down every time you attempt to favorite each one of your cells. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for today's video on how we can implement a really nice and easy feature that allows us to save the state of the rows that we tap on inside of our UI table view. Now, again, as I was mentioning earlier, the way that we communicate from our table view cells to our entire view controller is through a process called custom delegation. And if you want more information on how to do that, make sure to visit the couple of links down below. Alright, so if you're interested in downloading the source code for today's video, make sure to check out the description. If you like today's video, give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. That's going to be it for me today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye everyone.